Eddie Long was once considered one of the most influential pastors in America. Leading the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia, he commanded a congregation of over 25,000 people and was admired for his charisma, spiritual guidance, and community leadership. But in 2010, the world saw a very different side of Eddie Long, a side filled with scandal, controversy, and shocking allegations that rocked not just his church, but the wider community that had trusted him for decades. Today we'll explore the full story behind the Eddie Long scandal, the allegations, the misuse of power, and the dark undercurrents that left a permanent mark on his legacy. Eddie Long's rise to prominence was impressive. By the late 1980s, he had transformed New Birth into one of the largest megachurches in the United States. His sermons inspired thousands, his outreach programs were widely praised, and his personal charisma made him a role model for many in the African American community. People looked to him not just for spiritual guidance, but also for mentorship, advice, and support. His influence extended beyond the church walls, reaching into politics, media, and social circles. Yet with such immense power came immense responsibility, and, as it turned out, immense opportunity for abuse. In September 2010, shocking allegations emerged from 4 young men, later joined by a 5th, who claimed that Eddie Long had exploited his position of authority to engage in sexual relationships with them. The accusations, detailed in court documents, painted a picture of manipulation and coercion. According to these documents, Long had developed close relationships with these young men, calling them his spiritual sons, mentoring them, and guiding them under the pretense of religious leadership. He reportedly provided luxury gifts, financed trips, and arranged high-end accommodations, all while maintaining a veneer of spiritual care. These were not simple gifts or mentoring gestures. They were reportedly used to create dependence and control, blurring the boundaries between pastoral guidance and exploitation. Court filings and media reports revealed chilling specifics. One of the accusers, Jamal Paris, described how Long established a covenant ceremony, complete with ritual elements, jewelry, and promises of spiritual connection, which were then leveraged to exert influence and demand compliance. Allegedly, Long used his pastoral authority to normalize sexual acts, framing them as part of a spiritual bond. Some of the acts reported were of a sexual nature, including oral sex and other intimate contact, while the accusers were teenagers or young adults navigating formative years. Other accusers, including Maurice Robinson and Anthony Flagg, echoed similar stories, all pointing to a consistent pattern of coercion under the guise of mentorship. The allegations were deeply disturbing, highlighting not only sexual misconduct, but also emotional and spiritual manipulation. What made this scandal particularly troubling was the immense power dynamic at play. Eddie Long was more than a pastor. He was a father figure, a mentor, and a respected community leader. Several of the accusers had absent or estranged biological fathers, making them emotionally vulnerable and more likely to trust Long implicitly. Church members, colleagues, and the wider community placed unquestioning faith in him. This trust created an environment where manipulation could thrive unnoticed. The young men, relying on Long for guidance and support, were reportedly drawn into situations where consent, boundaries, and personal agency were compromised, highlighting the dangers of unchecked authority in positions of spiritual leadership. When news of the allegations broke, the reaction was immediate and intense. Media outlets highlighted not only the shocking nature of the accusations, but also the broader cultural implications, particularly within the African American religious community. Many questioned how such influential leaders could misuse power while preaching moral guidance. Public debates emerged around accountability, the role of megachurches in society, and the responsibility of religious institutions to protect their congregants. Eddie Long's previous stance on issues like marriage and morality added to the controversy, creating a stark contrast between his public persona and the allegations leveled against him. The scandal dominated headlines, and the court documents fueled intense discussions across national media, social platforms, and local communities. This first part of the Eddie Long story focuses on the allegations themselves, the sexual misconduct, the emotional manipulation, and the exploitation of trust and authority. But the story doesn't end there. Beyond these allegations, financial controversies, institutional scrutiny, and the eventual legal outcomes added new layers to the saga. In the next part, we will explore these financial disputes, the settlements, and the lasting impact of Eddie Long's scandal on the church, the victims, and the community that once revered him. In the aftermath of the allegations, attention turned not just to the personal misconduct claims, but also to the financial practices and institutional management of Eddie Long and his ministry. Reports revealed troubling patterns of excessive personal gain from church funds and a lack of financial transparency, raising serious questions about the governance of one of America's largest megachurches. Investigations suggested that between 1997 and 2000, Eddie Long received over $3 million in personal benefits from church-affiliated charities. These included substantial salaries, luxury vehicles, housing, and other perks that were reportedly funded by donations from congregants. Critics argued that the ministry, while operating as a non-profit, funneled resources disproportionately toward the pastor, blurring ethical lines. In 2007, the United States Senate Committee on Finance initiated a review of his ministry's tax-exempt status, focusing on whether funds were being used in accordance with federal regulations. While the review did not result in formal charges, the scrutiny intensified public skepticism and raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest and mismanagement of charitable contributions. Adding to the church's controversies, Eddie Long and his associates faced lawsuits related to property and financial obligations. One notable case in 2011 involved a dispute over a $2 million bank loan, resulting in a settlement that required payment of taxes, attorney fees, and other associated costs. Such financial entanglements compounded the negative perception created by the allegations of personal misconduct, leaving the church vulnerable to both media criticism and declining public confidence. By May 2011, Eddie Long chose to settle the lawsuits out of court with the 4 primary accusers. While the exact terms were confidential, media estimates suggested settlements around $15 million. In exchange, the accusers reportedly signed non-disclosure agreements, effectively limiting public access to their accounts. Despite the settlements, Eddie Long maintained his denial of wrongdoing, issuing public statements affirming his commitment to his congregation and disputing the claims. Legally, the cases were resolved, but the court of public opinion continued to weigh heavily against him. The scandal had a profound effect on New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Attendance began to decline, donations dropped, and the media spotlight on the church's leadership created an atmosphere of distrust. Members who had placed unwavering faith in Eddie Long experienced a profound sense of betrayal. The scandal also sparked wider discussions about accountability in religious institutions, the power dynamics between leaders and congregants, and the vulnerability of youth in spiritual settings. For many, Eddie Long's fall from grace became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the necessity of ethical transparency in positions of power. Ultimately, the Eddie Long scandal highlights a crucial lesson. Influence and trust, when misused, can cause deep and lasting harm. The combination of spiritual authority, charisma, and access to vulnerable individuals created a scenario ripe for exploitation. Beyond the headlines, the story serves as a reminder that no individual, no matter how revered, should be above accountability. For the victims, the community, and the broader society, the case underscores the importance of establishing boundaries, enforcing oversight, and prioritizing transparency, particularly in organizations that hold significant power over others' lives. The story of Eddie Long is not just about scandal or controversy. It's about human vulnerability, the complexity of power, and the lasting consequences of misconduct. While the legal battles may have ended, the lessons remain. Leadership carries responsibility. Influence can be both a gift and a weapon, and ethical accountability is indispensable. Eddie Long's life, ministry, and the scandal that enveloped him serve as a profound, if tragic, example of how power unchecked can ultimately lead to downfall. When the allegations against Eddie Long became public, The response was swift and intense. News outlets across the United States reported the story as one of the most shocking scandals involving a religious leader in recent history. Social media platforms erupted with debate as people expressed shock, disbelief, and anger. The contrast between Long's public image as a moral and spiritual guide and the allegations of sexual misconduct created a deep sense of betrayal among congregants. Many longtime church members struggled to reconcile their faith with the accusations, questioning how someone they trusted so implicitly could allegedly exploit their spiritual authority for personal gain. Major publications like ABC News, The Guardian, and The Washington Post covered the story extensively, highlighting not only the personal allegations, but also the broader cultural and ethical implications. The impact on the accusers was profound. Reports suggest that the young men involved experienced years of emotional and psychological distress. Being manipulated by a trusted authority figure during formative years can leave long-lasting scars, affecting self-esteem, trust, and relationships. In many ways, the allegations underscore the vulnerabilities of youth in environments where power and authority are concentrated. Psychologists note that manipulation by religious leaders carries unique challenges, as it combines spiritual, emotional, and social dimensions, making recovery and healing more complex. The use of spiritual language and rituals reportedly deepened the sense of control and confusion, leaving victims struggling to differentiate between genuine guidance and coercion. Beyond the immediate victims, the scandal shook the wider community. Many congregants and observers were forced to reflect on the structures of power and accountability in religious institutions. The scandal raised questions about how megachurches operate, how leaders are held accountable, and the safeguards needed to prevent abuse. It also sparked broader discussions about mentorship, spiritual guidance, and the potential dangers when such relationships become exploitative. Church leaders and organizations across the country began re-examining policies regarding transparency, supervision, and the protection of young congregants, demonstrating how one high-profile scandal can trigger systemic conversations about ethics and responsibility. Ultimately, the Eddie Long scandal is a cautionary tale about power, trust, and accountability. It demonstrates that no individual, regardless of charisma or influence, should operate without oversight. Leaders wielding spiritual or emotional authority must establish clear ethical boundaries, ensure transparency in their personal and financial dealings, and recognize the vulnerability of those they guide. For the public, the scandal serves as a reminder to remain vigilant, question unchecked authority, and support structures that protect vulnerable individuals. And for organizations, it reinforces the importance of policies, accountability, and creating safe spaces where misconduct can be reported and addressed without fear of reprisal. This additional context adds depth to our understanding of the Eddie Long scandal. Beyond allegations, financial controversies, and settlements, the psychological, social, and cultural consequences reveal the far-reaching effects of misconduct by powerful leaders. While Eddie Long's legal battles ended, the lessons learned continue to resonate. Authority carries responsibility. Influence must never be misused, and accountability is essential in every sphere of leadership. For viewers, reflecting on these lessons can help foster awareness and vigilance, ensuring that similar abuses of trust are less likely to occur in the future.